Before the sun rose over Amaudo village, Nkechi had already washed the blood of a black hen from her hands. She buried the feathers beneath her co-wife's doorstep, exactly as the herbalist instructed. By nightfall, she believed, Adaeze would be dead. But the spirits of Amaudo do not take bribes, and when they answered that call, they answered it against the woman who made it. Amaudo was a village built on rivers and rumors. Every compound had a story, and every story had a woman at the center of it, weighed and judged by how many children she had given her husband. Chief Okonkwo Eze owned the largest barn in the village and 2 wives beneath his roof. Nkechi, his first wife, had given him 3 daughters and no son. Adaeze, his second wife, arrived 4 years later, quiet and unassuming, carrying a baby boy on her back before her first rainy season in that house was over. From that day, the compound was never the same. Where Nkechi had once been greeted first at the market, women now called Adaeze's name before hers. Where elders once consulted her on matters of the household, they now walked past her hut to sit with Adaeze on the veranda. Jealousy does not arrive loudly. It arrives in small silences, in the way a smile takes 1 second too long to appear. For 2 years, Nkechi carried her bitterness the way a woman carries firewood, silently and with a straight back, so no one would know how heavy it was. She watched Adaeze's son grow. She watched Chief Okonkwo's eyes soften whenever the boy ran to him. And she watched her own daughters fetch water while the boy was carried on shoulders, praised for simply existing. It was her mother, visiting from the next village, who first spoke the words aloud. A woman who cannot bear the fruit her husband wants, the old woman said, stirring her soup without looking up, must sometimes remove the tree that bears it for another. Nkechi did not answer that night, but 3 days later, under cover of the evening market crowd, she took the bush path toward the forest where Babalawo Nwachukwu kept his shrine. He was known in 3 villages, feared in 5. Nkechi had heard the stories. A woman had gone to him during the famine years, wanting her husband's brother's land, and within a season the brother had vanished, never found. Nobody proved anything. Nobody needed to. The shrine smelled of camwood and old smoke. Nwachukwu did not look up when Nkechi entered. He simply asked, "What do you want destroyed?" Nkechi's voice shook only once when she said Adaeze's name. He nodded slowly, as though he had expected it, as though every second wife in every compound eventually had a first wife standing where Nkechi now stood. He told her what was required. 3 market days of preparation, a black hen slaughtered at midnight, its feathers buried beneath the target's doorstep before the first cock crow. In exchange, Nkechi would pay him with her late father's brass anklets, the only inheritance she had left. She did not hesitate. Grief and jealousy, when mixing together long enough, stopped feeling like sin. They kept speaking like justice. But Nwachukwu said one more thing before she left, something she would remember only much later, when it was far too late to matter. The spirits do not care whose hand brings the offering, he told her. They care whose heart is heaviest with the truth. Nkechi did not understand him then. She thought it was simply the strange talk of old men who spend too much time near shrines. On the third night, under a moon thin as a fingernail, Nkechi did exactly as instructed. She slaughtered the hen behind her own hut, wrapped its feathers in a cloth soaked in palm oil, and crossed the compound in silence while Cred co-wife slept. She knelt at Adeze's doorstep and buried the feathers exactly as the herbalist had shown her, whispering the words he had given her, words calling for sickness, for barrenness, for a slow unraveling of everything Adeze had built in that house. She returned to her hut, certain that by the next full moon, she would be the only wife left standing. She slept better that night than she had in 2 years. She did not know that the spirits of that land were far older than any herbalist shrine and far less interested in the politics of jealous wives than in the truth buried inside every offering brought before them. The sickness came within a week, but it did not come for Adeze. It began with a fever that no leaf or root could break. Then came the nightmares, Nkechi waking each night to the sound of wings beating against her hut, though no bird was ever found. Her daughters grew frightened of her. Her own reflection in the water pot began to unsettle her. The village dibia, summoned by a worried Chief Okonkwo, threw his cowries on the mat and went silent for a long moment before speaking. The offering was rejected, he said, and returned to the hand that sent it. He explained what Nwachukwu had never told her plainly, that when jealousy, not justice, drives such a ritual, the spirits do not simply refuse it, they redirect it. The black hen's curse had found the heart that carried the most guilt in that compound, and that heart was Nkechi's own. Adeze, meanwhile, remained untouched, unaware for weeks that anything had been done to her at all. While Nkechi wasted beneath fevers and visions, Adeze's son took his first steps across the compound, and the irony was not lost on anyone who later heard the full story. The very life Nkechi had tried to erase kept growing stronger while she grew weaker. It was Nkechi's own mother, the one who had first planted the idea in her daughter's mind, who finally confessed the truth to the compound, not out of courage, but out of fear that her daughter would die with the sin unspoken. Chief Okonkwo, a man who had never raised his voice in that household, sat in silence for an entire day after hearing it. He did not send Nkechi away. Amaudo was not a place quick to abandon its daughters, however far they had fallen. Instead, he brought both wives before the village elders, and it was Adeze, the very woman Nkechi had tried to destroy, who knelt beside a rival's sickbed and asked the dibia what could be done to lift the curse. Some said it was foolishness. Others called it the truest measure of a woman's spirit. Adeze fasted 3 days on Nkechi's behalf, and on the 4th day brought her own offering to the shrine, not to harm, but to release. The fever broke that same night. Nkechi never returned to that forest again. Word spread through Amaudo and beyond it, the way such stories always do, until even herbalists in neighboring villages began warning their clients. The spirits do not serve the hand that pays them. They serve the truth that hand is hiding. The two women never became friends in the way songs describe, but something quieter grew between them. A peace built not on forgiveness alone, but on the plain fact that they had both seen what jealousy costs, and neither wanted to pay that price again. If there is one thing the elders of Amaudo still tell their daughters today, it is this: the spirit you call upon to destroy another will always look first into the heart that summoned them. Choose carefully what you carry into the dark. If this story moved you, don't scroll past without leaving a comment. Tell me where you're watching from tonight. Subscribe so you never miss the next village story. And if you believe the spirits always know the truth, even when we hide it from ourselves, type Amen before you go.